on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
Welcome to the Jan Price Show, and I am so excited for my guest today is Ben Mankiewicz, who is the primetime host of Turner Classic Movies. Welcome, Ben.
I guess you can't have movers and shakers on every week, Jan.
Sometimes we have to slum a little bit, Ben.
Right.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I've tried to get you on for a long time. You are a busy, busy man. So I'm grateful that you took the time out to be on our show today. We're going to start with, you come from Hollywood royalty, and I want to know, your father was part of the Mankiewicz dynasty from Hollywood, but he didn't stay in Hollywood. He went back east to Washington, D.C. Why didn't he pursue a career in the Hollywood realm?
Well, for someone who came from Hollywood royalty, as people like to say, the first time somebody said that to me, I thought they were joking, or I thought somebody was behind me. It was at a party. I was out here in 1988. I grew up in D.C. I'll get to that in a moment with my father and mother, of course, but my dad went in a different direction, as you said, but I came out to visit some relatives in CLA. I really had only been one at a time when I was a little boy. So I came out, I was 21 years old in 1988, I think in the summer, like between junior and senior year of college. And I spent 3 weeks here, and I got invited to a party. And the person who invited me to the party introduced me to the host of the party, and he clapped his heels together and bowed and said Hollywood royalty. And I looked behind me like, is Larry Chaplin coming in behind me? Like who's this? And even though, of course, I was aware of my family's movie history, I was aware of it only in a chronological sense. Like I knew what movies had been made when, but I didn't realize that there were people out here who held the name in such reverence. So it was a very strange evening. Oddly, for somebody who came from that family, there was at least in my father's household when he was growing up, his father was Herman Mankiewicz, who wrote Citizen Kane among many other movies. But there was disdain for Hollywood, active disdain, and what they wanted to talk about was politics and books, literature, the world, so my grandfather always clearly, if you read about him, and he died many years before I was born, but he had a great deal of shame that this is how he made his living, and at times made his living well, that he was well paid for doing what he considered to be nonsense. A theater critic, that was a real job. A reporter, which he'd been, that was a real job. This was nonsense, he thought. So there was no encouragement of my father to go into it. And in fact, when my father wanted to go back east for college, that was interrupted by the Second World War. He was encouraged to do so, and my father entered politics while my grandfather was still alive, ran for the state legislature here in California. I have his posters hanging up here in my house. That was all encouraged, and became a lawyer, went to law school, and then later moved into politics. That was serious business. The movie business, that was silliness in the household that they grew up in.
Interesting, right? Because movies can change people's thinking and lives in many other ways. But
I think my grandfather was wrong, and I just think there was a degree of self-loathing that went on with him. I mean, he was a drinker, and a fun drunk, but a drinker, and could have had a great career. I mean, he was arguably in some ways more talented than his brother, Joe Mankiewicz, who was enormously talented, but Herman was funnier. Herman had sort of Joe's gifts, but also a real keen sense of humor. Not that Joe wasn't funny, but Herman was exceptionally funny. And he squandered it to some extent. He got fired all the time. So there was some self-loathing going on, and obviously you come out here, you can write important movies that move people, movies that make people think about things differently. There's a lot of opportunities to do great and important things out here, or you can think it's a silly job, but you don't have to hate yourself for it.
Right.
A lot of silly jobs.
There are a lot of silly jobs out there. So then, how did you end up? Because you didn't start off, your career path didn't start off in this industry. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up out here in the family business.
Well, though I was always extremely close to my father, who was a great dad and a great man, but I I spent some time trying to run from being his son. And again, this is not like I'm not again, as I like to say, my name's not Ben Spielberg, right? Let's not kid ourselves here about like there's a limit to the fame that comes with that name. But my dad was the smartest person that I ever met, and I'm not exaggerating. He was really just about the smartest person that anyone who knew him had ever met. So, and his political acumen and his just people, he just understood how to break a situation down. He was enormously helpful to a lot of people. He was, again, ran Bobby Kennedy's, ran George McGovern's campaign, Bobby Kennedy's press secretary, first Latin American director of the Peace Corps, president of National Public Radio, and again, just a big deal in Washington and revered. And I knew very early on, I was like, I am not that. I am not going to be as smart as this guy. I haven't liked to read enough. There's just no way. It was inconceivable that I was going to match my father. And so I tried to think of things. He was a big sports fan. He made me a big sports. So I wanted to be in sports. I thought, well, that's a different thing for this family to do, right? I won't be relying on my father for that. And so I sort of set out to do that. And then, sort of not dissimilar from my grandfather, I was a sports producer in Washington, D.C., and I thought, this is silly. This is not an important enough way to make a living. After I got back from journalism school, I was working in sports radio in D.C., and it was the night Bill Clinton was elected president. And for the 12 years, most of my cognizant life, from the time I was 12, 13 until I was 25, there had been a Republican president, and this was a sea change. No matter what your politics, this was different. Mm-hmm. And I was working at this sports radio station, and all these guys were talking about as we were waiting for returns to come in from Colorado and California late at night, and Bill Clinton was coming out on stage, and Fleetwood Mac was playing. Clinton and Gore were out there with their wives, and all these guys were talking about was like whether the Washington Capitals would need a new goalie for a deep playoff run. and literally, I was like, what? This is just nonsense. This is silly. And now, in hindsight, while that is silly, it's okay. That's an okay way to make a living. It's okay. Mm-hmm. That's fine. So
somebody's got to do it.
Right. I love sports, and lifts. People come together with sports, and we may be silly and stupid and overrate its importance, but it does make us feel a certain way. And
right.
So I stopped doing that, and then I was a real reporter, and then eventually it sort of, I hated being a television news reporter because it was silly. I thought, again, this is not a noble way to make a living because we talk about nonsense. And that eventually led me to TCM in just a stroke of enormous luck.
And how did that happen? How did you come to TCM?
It really is luck. I mean, I'd been a television reporter in Charleston, South Carolina, and then a reporter and an anchor at a very inventive station in Miami owned by Barry Diller, where we didn't do regular news at all. We didn't cover fires. We didn't cover murders. We covered, and I was there for two huge stories. Elian Gonzalez, the little boy
right.
who, on the raft, his mother and family were killed at sea, and other people he was going with, but his father was still alive in Cuba, and there became a big debate of whether to send him back to Cuba.
Right, I remember that.
And we were at this television station in Miami that Barry Diller started that wanted us to have an opinion, a take, and then to defend it in any story we did. Even the take could be left wing, right wing, middle of the road, but you had to back it up, or you could even have no opinion, but you had to say why it was okay to have no opinion. It was fun. Nobody watched, but it was fun, and I found my voice there when the voice it turned out my voice. Like, I just thought, I can't imitate someone I'll just be myself. And then I was hosting that show, and it was fun. And again, I mean, when I say no one watched, I mean no one watched. But we did some good stuff, and we won some awards, and the 8 people who watched us liked us. And so Elian, the story, and the 2000 election in Florida, and those,
right.
three counties. So there was, great stories to cover if you care about news and care about politics. But when that station went under and Diller sold it, there was no way I wanted to go back and do local news. I could have done it, but I really didn't want to. So I came out to L.A. and I auditioned for every show on television as a host or game show host, game show host, talk show host, that kind of thing. And I got, I was rejected 171 times usually, and the rejections are so personal. Mm-hmm. My respect for actors went through the roof because you come in, you read in this sterile room, and you And then afterwards, they're like, yeah, we don't really like the whole thing you have here with your legs and arms and the way your head is on and then the things that you say. We're not into that, So, and then I got this audition came up at TCM, and they envisioned, Robert Osborne was the only host at the time. This was 2003. And they wanted a new host on weekends, and they envisioned the weekends being something different than they are. They envisioned it being a conversation between the host and people involved with a movie, right? And if the people, if you were going to have Dodsworth and you couldn't get, obviously you couldn't get William Wyler, Walter Houston, but maybe you get Catherine Wyler and maybe you get Angelica Houston, right? And then they'd talk about the movie and talk about their family. Right? It was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came in and auditioned for that. And to do it, I had to compare the Magnificent Seven to the Seven Samurai, and then they would rotate all the hosts that were in, and we'd sit with each other and ask them questions about these movies. And I can do that. I mean, despite going on and on here, I'm actually a pretty good listener, and I like interviewing people, and I like talking like you do, And I knew I was doing well. They kept putting me with everybody. Right? They'd be like, okay, now you play the expert, and now you play the host. And then they kept bringing, Ben, you stay, and they kept bringing people in. And I thought, this is going well. And then by the time I got called back for another audition, like a month and a half later, they had realized this is going to be too hard to book. We'll never, ever be able to get guests for this. We'll just have them do what Robert does on the weekends, and whoever we hire will just intro movies. And so I feel like if they hadn't had this brief window of another idea, I would never have been able to shine in the way I did in that audition. Otherwise, I just would have been a guy coming in nervously reading a teleprompter. So by the time I got called back, there were only 3 people left, and they already knew I could do that, and I got the job. So,
wow.
That's the luck part.
That's the luck part. Did you have an agent to get that audition, or did you?
Yeah, sure. I've had an agent since I went to Charleston, South Carolina, or since I wanted to get out of Charleston, South Carolina. I went to Charleston, my first job. I just put the tape that I'd made in grad school and working as a sports producer at a TV station in D.C., and I just drove to 6 or 7 markets in the South and tried to get somebody to hire me. And I did. I got hired as a morning show producer in Charleston. And then they put me on the air, a guy named Don Feldman, who served a little time for embezzlement, and he put me on the air with a month. He said he'd put me on inside of a year, and he put me on in a month.
Wow.
Had me do a story on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, and and technically I'm Jewish, but I was like, Ben, we're going to do Yom Kippur. Do a story where you explain to everybody what Yom Kippur was. You want it ready to go on the air? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, Don. I'm great. I just remember calling my dad and be like, Dad, I don't really know what Yom Kippur is. Tell me everything I need to know about Yom Kippur. You need to do it in 8 minutes.
Wow. Well, on that note, we're going to be right back after these few commercial breaks. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like The Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Have you ever dreamed of doing commercials or movies? Your dream starts with a desire. And if you have a desire to do commercials and feature films, we want to know about you. We're Moco Film, one of the Genesis companies that includes VoiceJock, a major provider of TV commercial talent to TV stations throughout the nation. Registering is free. Just go to mocofilm.com and fill out the information. That's MOCOfilm.com. You'll become part of a large talent bank available to producers. Go to mocofilm.com today and start living your dream.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right, it's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
Breakfast on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Ben Mankiewicz, who is the primetime host of Turner Classic Movies. So, Ben, after you nailed your audition, and I did see over the holidays that the movie you introduced was The Bishop's Wife.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I talked about that on the air. That's right, yeah.
You did, and it's one of my favorites, too. I love that movie, but you have it's a special place in your heart because that's the one that you nailed the audition. So... Go ahead.
Let me just say real quick, because this is a silly business. So I go in, and again, by then they've changed it, and I just read a teleprompter. They'd sent me the copy ahead of time. I was not confident enough to change anything, and I basically read what they had in a teleprompter, and okay, I mean, I'd been a news anchor, and I'm good at reading aloud, and I finish it in one take or whatever, and the director, who's gone now, a guy named Tony Barber, he goes, "Well, I can tell this is not your first barbecue," which is an expression I had not heard before. And I just remember thinking, no, I've read lots of times. It's just such an odd thing. And then a couple weeks later, I got the job.
And you got the job. So after you got the job, how helpful was Robert Osborne? I know you wrote, when he passed away this past year, you were so eloquent in what you had to say about him, and the warmth of your relationship certainly came through. But because he had been the sole host for almost 10 years at that point, or close to it, how was he as far as welcoming you as a new host on TCM?
Well, when I wrote about Robert's death, and Robert and I, over the last few years, developed a slightly closer relationship. But we didn't have, my closeness to him is odd because, one, I revered him. But two, the only reason I have this job is because of him. Not that he signed off on hiring me, but he created this job. I mean, I know guys did it. I know Nick Clooney did it, and others at AMC. But Robert made this job a thing that mattered to Americans who love classic movies, right?
Right.
And if he hadn't done that, then this could have just gone away. TCM could be a network that shows old movies but never has a host. Or before the movie, we put on the screen. It's still my biggest fear in life that one day they'll decide we don't need to pay hosts money. What if we just we'll just write 7 interesting facts about a movie on the screen before it starts, and we'll pay some kid $22 an hour to do that, and then we're done.
Right.
By the way, $22 an hour, $12 an hour, and then we're done. So Robert and I were not close. I think he didn't love that a young kid came in here and was this was his territory, but he was certainly we started to develop a relationship. But I almost never saw him because we couldn't be in Atlanta at the same time. So the reason I felt close to him was because we worked with exactly the same people, same wardrobe consultants, same makeup artists, same directors, same producers, same writers, same lighting guys, same set decorators, same executives. We all had. I'd go to Atlanta and do a version of the life that he had done the week before or 2 weeks before. He went more often, and these people who I loved then and love now at TCM. There's been very little turnover there. They loved him, right? So I mean, just the way they talked about him, right? He told me, I was like, oh, they like this guy, right? This is not a diva. This guy is not a pain ever. This guy is never demanding. He had his quirks, which they found endearing, and were they, eager. They were, if he wanted a certain kind of tea, they wanted to get him that tea, So I sort of grew to respect him enormously because these people who I know are just as decent folks as there are on the planet, the way they felt about him. And then over time, as we started having events like the TCM Festival and the TCM Cruise, I finally got to be in the same place with him. And that's when, I think particularly at his 20th birthday, his 20th anniversary at TCM celebration, which would have been in 2014. I did a little tribute to him then along the same vein, and I think that touched him a little bit, and so it was really nice. I mean, obviously, if you're going to be at TCM, what you want constantly is to know that Robert Osborne saw you do something and thought, okay, that's all right.
Yeah,
and he did. So I feel enormously blessed. I wish I'd known him better, but again, we were oddly never in the same place at the same time, or rarely.
And I found out from when I had Eddie Muller on the show that you
I
go
hate
to
that guy. I hate that Eddie on.
You're getting you two get to see each other. I heard you spent Valentine's Day together last year.
If I'd known you have Eddie on, I never would have come on. Jim.
A little bromance. Oh,
No, Eddie's great.
Yeah, and you know what I'm also noticing on the show is that you are doing more of those interviews that you talked about, which is what you initially had auditioned for. I know Eddie's going to have, Annette Bening on the show, and also he recently had John Garfield's daughter on to introduce The Postman Always Rings
Julie,
Twice.
Right,
And so I'm seeing, and there's been other guest hosts that have come on to introduce movies, like Michael Feinstein doing musicals. So I see that you're doing more of that. Is that a direction that TCM's consciously heading towards?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, that's an executive level decision, but I think it makes sense. I mean, it's clear that we're trying to do that more. Robert did all those, and so even though I had this, I hope, skill set, which, to be fair. To be honest, not to be fair, but to be honest, it took me a while to refine. My early interviews at TCM, the few that I got, I did spend a fair amount of time trying to prove to the audience, whether it was a television audience or a live audience, that I belonged in that chair, right? So I was very eager to spit out facts and tell people what I knew. Mm-hmm. When the fact is, they're there to see Tippi Hedren, they're there to see Eva Marie Saint, they're there to see Ernest Borgnine, Norman Lloyd, and that takes. But I lacked some confidence. I wanted to prove my worth, and then eventually, you sort of realize your worth is proven by the fact that you're there, right? And so, and now your job is to get these people who you're talking to deliver their best, because that's why people are there. So I learned to. Again, contrary to what you're hearing during this conversation, I learned to shut up.
No, I'm here to interview you for the same way. It's about you. It's not about me. And I think that frustrates me when I do see when I watch an interview and the interviewer is talking more than the interviewee, and it gets frustrating because I feel the same way. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear what the guest has to say.
As you know, I mean, maybe you know. I presume you do. I hope you feel the same way. To me, I learned that the best questions I ask ever are, why, huh, and really. Like, I just, again, if they stop talking and you go, huh, then they just keep going and they say something else interesting. It's inevitable. Right?
Yeah. It's always good to do a good interview. It takes a good listener and being ready. You're right, to fill in the gaps when we need to fill in the gaps. And speaking of that, go ahead. Do you have something?
But filling in the gaps is also interesting. Like you gotta be willing to have it be silent. Like I talked to Matthew Modine, who's as delightful as can be.
I love Matthew Modine. Yes.
And he and Matt, when I knew I was doing okay, I asked him a couple questions about Kubrick, and he paused. He waited. He thought about his answer, and I just thought, this is great. He's not giving me a formulaic answer. He's thinking about what he's going to say. And again, 2 or 3 seconds. And it was, you don't need to fill that. People will wait with you.
Exactly. They will. There's no question about it. Matthew Modine is on our board of directors for the Carmel International Film Festival here, so I've had the opportunity to meet him a couple times, and he's lovely. Just lovely.
He's great.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back after these brief messages. You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like the Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Do you have difficulty falling or staying asleep? Do you suffer from snoring, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or other sleep disorders? If so, we can help. Call Monterey Bay Sleep Center and arrange a sleep study in one of our luxury suites. We specialize in diagnosing and treating sleep disorders so you can regain your quality of life. Our luxury suites feature hotel-quality beds and flat-panel TVs so that you feel most comfortable during your stay. Call us today to arrange a sleep study at our secure facility in Monterey.
Call 831-920-1411. That's 831-920-1411.
The Ozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Ozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Ozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Ben Mankiewicz, who's the primetime host of Turner Classic Movies. Ben, you have a crackerjack research team. I am so always impressed with the introductions to the movies. By the way, the only thing I watch is Turner Classic Movies. I record all the movies. I just love it. And sometimes I just record. If I know you're introducing a movie, I will record it, even though it may not be a movie I want to see. I do the same thing with Eddie sometimes, too. And I'll just record it because I want to hear what you have to say. And then I'll fast forward and hear what you have to say after the movie. But having said that, whenever you do your intros, your personality and your wry and dry sense of humor comes out. So obviously, do you rewrite them once they give you the script, or are you writing them also?
I rewrite every one of them, it may take more time than anything else I do at TCM. I guess the big things, festival preparation. Because we'll have a 4-day festival coming up April 26th through 29th.
And I want to talk about that too. We will talk about that. Go ahead.
I'll have I don't know who I have this year, but I'll have 10 big interviews to do in those 4 days. So a tremendous amount of research will go into that. And they'll send me the research, but then I have to read it and organize it and figure out what matters.
Right.
But basically, I go every month to shoot, and we'll shoot between 90 and 150 movies. So that's between 180 and 300 ins and outs, because each movie has 2 different segments. So I spend a lot of time. Some scripts I'll rewrite in 8 minutes, and then some take me 38 minutes. Sometimes because I'll go down some. Yeah, the Julie Christie movie, Darling, John Schlesinger. We're doing it on 31 Days of Oscar. I think.
Oh, I'm so excited! I'm so excited.
And I like the movie, but I haven't seen it I like it a lot, but I haven't seen it in forever, right?
Right.
And so there was a line in it about how John Schlesinger has a cameo in the movie, right? And so I go, and it just said the writer just said he plays a man interviewing Christie, and I thought, well, that's not sufficient for people to know what that is or how to look for it. I don't even think people would recognize John Schlesinger, certainly not in the 1960s. So I start looking for that clip. I can't find the clip. I can't find a reference to it. He's listed in IMDb as playing a theater director. That doesn't mean anything to me. I don't remember that scene. So I spent like 41 minutes trying to figure out what context he was interviewing her, and if interviewing was the right word, or if it was just talking. Was he a reporter? Was she auditioning, which she does in the movie? That could have been that, but I remember it for a movie, not a play. So I wasted 45 minutes again, just trying. And then I was like, just figure out another way to say it, or take it out. It's fine. But and then you got to do, you do 60 of them. That you spend an hour on that one. You've spent quite some time on one thing, one line.
How did you end up with that? How did you end up?
I think I copped out. I said Schlesinger has a cameo in the movie. I was worried about saying theater director because IMDb has been wrong, and I said it's an uncredited cameo. As I put a little more of what Christie does in the movie in context, her sort of character arc, without giving too much away. And then I said he plays something that. I didn't use the word man or guy because it wasn't enough. I skipped. I just made that a little fancier so it sounded heavier, and then I pointed out that it was uncredited. but I couldn't do it, and I wasted a lot of time and didn't really solve it.
And didn't solve it at the end of it. Yeah, I met John Schlesinger years ago when he directed a movie with Shirley MacLaine. I can't remember when she played the musician, the pianist. Anyhow, a Russian pianist years and years and years ago.
I like John Schlesinger.
I do too. So are you when you go to Atlanta? I mean, are they sending you the intros and outros before you arrive? So
I have
before you
go. I go next week. I mean, I'm late doing them now. We have a slightly shorter shoot of only 60 scripts because I'm staying in LA an extra day next week. We added a day to the previous shoot and made it a longer shoot, so this one could be shorter because I have an interview on Tuesday night where I'm going to be interviewing Sherry Lansing for a long-form interview in front of a bunch of actors. So we all thought that was important that I do. So
yes.
we shortened this shoot, but I still have 60 scripts to go through, and I didn't want to do anything over the holidays, so I'm cramming them in now. So basically, about 2 weeks before I go, they start giving me scripts, and I try so as not to get overwhelmed. I try to do 10 or 15 a day. But, as I said, that sometimes that can be 6 or 7 hours. When you're writing, too, nobody writes just, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to work straight through for 5 hours, and each one will take 20 minutes, and then I'll have done 15. Like, that's not, you get up, you walk the dog, you make coffee, you fidget.
I know exactly.
Yeah, so I do a lot of my best writing to the extent that this is writing. After my daughter's gone to bed, there's a lot of 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. working.
And so does everybody rewrite their scripts?
I have no idea. I assume so. Eddie only does one movie. Eddie does one movie a week. Yeah, I could kill it if I only did one movie.
Yeah, one movie a week. But I know he does because his is like watching, a master class on film noir when you look at his introduction. It's totally different.
I don't speak for TCM management, but I just sense that people will be seeing more of Eddie because he's such a he can do so much and he adds so much, and there's such a passion that comes through in those noir intros. But I mean, by the way, I am jealous of his set. I'm jealous of the time he gets on the intro, and he gets production. Like they edit stuff in his intro. He's got he's got pictures, he's got posters. I get nothing. It's just me talking.
Wait, you have to talk to your agent.
Yeah, totally. I mean, mine are like totally phoned in. I've been here. This will be 15 years this year, and they're like, "Yeah, have a great time."
Renegotiate that contract.
I'm saying, executives don't even come down anymore. Like when I'm there and I'm shooting, they used to come down and be like, "Hey, how's it?" Now nothing. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares about you anymore.
Nobody cares. Eddie. Oh, he's so great.
My little violin's going for you, Ben. Well, they are promoting him quite a bit, I will say that.
Yeah, don't think I don't know that. Okay, I got it, yeah.
Sorry to say that, Ben. All right, we've got lots of things. Let's talk about, you brought up the Turner Classic Movies Film Festival in April. Give us the dates again.
26th through the 29th. I hope I have that right. It's the last weekend in April.
Okay. So this is the 7th year? 8th year?
I think this is the 9th year.
Oh, 9th.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 9th festival. Yeah.
And have you been at, you've been at all of them, I would say.
Yes, I have been at all of them.
You've been at all of them. So tell us a little bit about that. Maybe, so the audience will go online and purchase tickets and come to the festival.
Filmfestival.tcm.com. But if you just Google TCM Festival, you'll get there. 26th through the 29th. I did get the days right. This is an amazing event. 4 nights and 3 days in Hollywood at the really the best, the great theaters there. Former Grauman's Chinese, which is now the oh my God, I can't remember what it's called anymore. The IMAX theater, and TCL Chinese theater IMAX, and then sometimes we have El Capitan across the street. We always have the Egyptian theater. We do usually a long form interview at the Montalban Theater. All these sort of great classic theaters in Hollywood, plus some of the regular Cineplex at the Man Chinese at the Man theaters there, now the TCL theaters. So we'll screen between roughly 100 movies, between 75 and 100 movies over these 4 days. Classic movies, some slightly more modern, but always with some classic thread to them. And then we bring in big stars to talk about them, and writers. I think the written word, the powerful words, the page on screen is our theme this year. So we're going to be focusing on writers. But that lets us show almost any movie we want. All we have to do is say that it's well written, so we're showing it. Opening night, the producers. Thursday night, the 26th, the producers. Mel Brooks will be there.
Exciting.
So I mean, it's a great event, and it's not so much a chance to see Mel Brooks, a chance to see Eva Marie Saint, a chance to see we hope Paul Schrader, Martin Scorsese, but an opportunity to you meet people like you. You're no longer the only guy at the advertising agency or at the sporting goods store who loves classic movies, right? You are suddenly with a couple thousand, 3,000, 4,000 other people who share this love, and then you go watch these movies together and you connect. And to me, the best sign of it is the enormous number of friends that people who've met come from all over the country, all over the world, and meet at this festival and are now friends and have been since the first festival back in 2010.
Wow, I love festivals. I call them Love Fest.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and this is a particularly perfect one. Everything's within walking distance.
Which makes it lovely to do.
I think we're going to use the clubhouse of the American Society of Cinematographers this year, which is just beautiful, which is right up the street in Hollywood. And I'm hosting the ASC Awards this year, which is a huge honor on February 17th, the sort of, the Oscars just for cinematographers.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
What's the date on that one?
I think that's February 17th, and I think they're going to stream it.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. And, of course, cinematography, one of the categories we have for 31 Days of Oscar. But the festival is it's a great experience. And it's just fun. You just go to movies and you see great panels. And we don't just show movies. We have panels. We got a whole thing set up at the Roosevelt Hotel, a whole sort of club TCM where we'll bring in experts and host panel after panel with really just one thoughtful conversation after another. I did a long conversation last year with Peter Bogdanovich, which was great and has touched off what we hope will be a significant piece of programming this year involving Peter.
Oh, he's great.
All the directors.
Yeah, he's great. I've met him too, and he's wonderful. He's absolutely wonderful to talk with. He truly is. So, do you have other names you can tell us at this point who will be coming
I don't
this year?
I don't think I do because I'm not. There may be already some announcements, but I don't remember. And I know that Mel Brooks has been announced. That's the one I'm very comfortable.
You don't want to leak anything in case it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that has been a problem for me before, which I've been alerted to. So, yeah.
All right, we don't want you to get in any trouble. We're going to.
Robert Benton has been announced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, so that'll be good. Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Award-winning writer. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Well, we're going to be right back after these brief messages. You are listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. And like the Jan Price Show on Facebook. And check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right, it's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476 or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
Have you ever dreamed of doing commercials or movies? Your dream starts with a desire. And if you have a desire to do commercials and feature films, we want to know about you. We're Moco Film, one of the Genesis companies that includes VoiceJock, a major provider of TV commercial talent to TV stations throughout the nation. Registering is free. Just go to mocofilm.com and fill out the information. That's MOCOfilm.com. You'll become part of a large talent bank available to producers. Go to mocofilm.com today and start living your dream.
on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Ben Mankiewicz, who is the primetime host of Turner Classic Movies. Ben, let's talk about 31 Days of Oscars, my favorite month of the year on TCM. Tell us, you've got some really exciting premieres this year coming up on TCM, some newer movies. So I thought that was very interesting. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up and how some of those movies are chosen. Who decides?
Well, the programming department, led by Charlie Tavish, he's really my closest friend at the channel, has been since I started. And Charlie has a programming team, and they just work this out. You know, they like doing it. Charlie's like me. Charlie's a gambler and likes to move stuff around and figure out what works where. And so this year, you know, we usually connect the movies on 31 Days of Oscar in some meaningful way. And this year, it's so simple. I can't believe we haven't done it before. Maybe we have, and I'm mistaken. But I think I think we started in 2002. I think that we started the year before I got there, so this would be the 17th year of 31 Days of Oscar. But I might have made that up, and I might be totally wrong. Because we also do a big programming event, as you know, in the summer, in August, Summer Under the Stars.
Right.
It might be the 17th year of Summer Under the Stars. It's possible. I just have those conflated. But anyway, so every movie we show for 31 days, the 28 days of February and 3 days of March, is an Oscar nominee or winner. Every single movie. And this year we're breaking them down by category. And we'll show nominees and some winners during the day, and then exclusively winners in primetime.
I think this was very exciting. I loved how it was broken down, and I'm not sure, I don't know either if that's what they've done in the past or not.
No, I know we haven't done it like this any time that I've been involved in hosting it, which is obviously I've been there 15 years. I've done part of it for 15 years. It's just a very clever and simple way to do it, that with the nominees during the day. And you know, we give the big categories extra days. We have 3 nights of Best Picture, I think 2 or 3 nights for Best Actor and Actress and Supporting Actress. But we have sound, we have costume design, we have special effects. Obviously, we have 2 nights of cinematography winners and nominees on Saturday the 3rd and then Sunday the 4th. And again, I'm glad to see that because I'm hosting the cinematography, the Guild's award show on the 17th. So
perfect.
I just think this is it's a really smart and clever way to do it.
And you know, original score, editing.
Yeah, we open with song and score on the first 2 nights.
And then documentaries, because that's something have you done documentaries in the past?
We have done documentaries in the past, but I don't know that we've had just a day devoted to documentary winners and nominees, and then documentary feature winners. I mean, that's on I think on the 5th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is the 5th.
That night has An Inconvenient Truth, Davis Guggenheim's movie. It has The Times of Harvey Milk, the documentary, not the Sean Penn movie. It's got Woodstock, and then it's got Hearts and Minds, which my uncle Peter Davis directed and obviously won an Oscar for. This sort of seminally important movie that was part of the massive reevaluating of what we were doing in Vietnam.
Very fascinating. In The Secret Land.
And also, that's right, Hearts, Minds, and Not Less. Then also The Secret Land, which I think is from the late 40s.
1948, so, 70 years ago. So really some very fascinating films. But what I'm intrigued with is that you have as Best Costume Design winner, The Great Gatsby from 2013.
Yeah, so we... as always, if we get a complaint, and every year at the festival when we did the cruise, we would have these panels where TCM executives would sit and answer any question that people had. And one of the questions was always, "You're showing too many modern movies," right? I mean, I hear that a lot.
Right,
Mostly,
right.
By the way, I mean, I go around town here in L.A., and when people recognize me, it is almost universal praise. Sometimes the praise is tempered with one criticism, and if there is a criticism, it's that we show too many modern movies. The number of modern movies that we show really never changes. It really doesn't. I mean, the percentage is almost identical. Obviously, as you get further and further, we started in 1994, and I'm sure people might have thought that a movie like Darling was too recent because it was only 29 years earlier, right? And now we're in 2018. It seems like, sure, a movie from 1965 makes a great deal of sense. But my definition of classic and your definition of classic and your listener's definition of classic is different. So we would almost certainly not show The Great Gatsby just random, the 2013, the Baz Luhrmann film, the DiCaprio movie. We would not show it just randomly on, the evening of July 9th, right?
Right.
But we would show it in the context of showing. And what do we have? We have Gatsby for costume design. Is that right?
Costume design winner.
Yeah. So in the context of costume design winners, a whole day of winners and nominees, and then exclusively winners at night, it makes total sense to show The Great Gatsby.
Total.
And I would argue that if we had an evening of movies set in the 1920s, that it might make sense in a random night to show the original the Gatsby that most of us know, right? And then also show this one. That would make sense.
Exactly.
If we're going to show a modern movie, we're going to tie it to Hollywood history in a way, and we're going to curate it in a way that's meaningful to the viewer. We're not just going to pop the movie up there. We have Braveheart.
I know.
Going as well.
I know. That's exciting. It's a movie you don't get to see that often, but certainly, seeing it on TCM is wonderful. Dead Man Walking.
Dead Man Walking, right? Again,
Best Actress Susan Sarandon.
But I would also say that if we were going, a night we could show Dead Man Walking and I Want to Live on the same night again.
Yes,
but
we'd
we'd connect them in some meaningful way. Charlie Tabish used to use the example of the final version of Love Affair. There was Love Affair and Fair to Remember, and then a remake of Love Affair with Warren Beatty and Annette Bening.
I think there's 4 versions of that, isn't there?
I think you're probably right.
Yeah,
but the most recent version, or the 94 version.
The 94 version.
It's not very good.
No.
I love Warren Beatty.
I love Warren
Annette
Beatty.
Bening, but
Me
it's
too.
not great. But it's Katharine Hepburn's final film appearance.
Yes.
So in an evening of 24 hours of Katharine Hepburn, of course we'd show it.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to do that. I over the holidays, I watched all 3 Little Women.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I just recorded them, and then I watched them all close together, and picked out my favorite out of the 3. But it was kind of fun to do that. And the 94 version was my least favorite, and that's the one that had Susan Sarandon in it, who I adore. But they changed it so much, and it just didn't have the emotional impact.
Yeah, but seeing movies together like that, again, it changes the I get a lot of debates with people about movies, and I don't think Godfather 3 is that bad.
No, I don't either.
It's not, obviously, it's not as good as the first 2. It would be impossible. But particularly if you watch the 3 of them together, if you have a night where you decide, or a weekend where you decide to watch The Godfathers, then I think it makes a great deal of sense. Then it becomes pretty good. So context matters as opposed to just sort of seeing it on its own.
I agree. Francis Ford Coppola filmed Godfather 3, part of it, right outside my New York City apartment. The Klieg lights shone right into my apartment, and he filmed next door. There was a disco, and there's a scene with his daughter Sophia and Andy Garcia. At the time, there was this disco next door in New York. So, I have a warm spot in my heart for that movie since he was out there for several days, and I got to talk with him while he was filming. So it was
I did a great conversation with him. I mean, great for me, conversation with him about The Conversation, which is such a wonderful movie and relevant today, and I called it then. I don't think he totally appreciated this, but the greatest sandwich movie of all time, because he made it in between Godfathers 1 and 2.
Well, it's just like Steven Spielberg just did with The Post. He was in post-production, I think, for Ready Player One.
That's right, yeah.
And he dropped that to go do The Post quickly.
And they did. I saw a Q&A with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks and Brad Woodford, and they told that story that all of the Post, it all happened incredibly fast in a town where it can often take 9 years to make a movie. This got done I guess when you have Hanks and Streep and Spielberg, you probably can move the process.
It blows you away because he read the script in February and he brought it out by Christmas. I mean, it shows you when you're really good at your craft, you can do that. And when you were able to pull those actors, fabulous actors, in so quickly too, it says a lot. It's the same thing with All the Money in the World. I have such appreciation for Ridley Scott and what he did in replacing Kevin Spacey with Christopher Plummer in that short window of time and still delivering the movie. So
yeah, it's really
amazing.
the craftsmanship, the professionalism of the people who make these movies is really, it's astounding.
It is astounding. And again, these are people who've been doing it for many, many, many years and don't need to take forever to put a movie together, which is, sometimes, as you know, Hollywood takes forever. Well, we're going to take a quick break. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. And like The Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Do you have difficulty falling or staying asleep? Do you suffer from snoring, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or other sleep disorders? If so, we can help. Call Monterey Bay Sleep Center and arrange a sleep study in one of our luxury suites. We specialize in diagnosing and treating sleep disorders so you can regain your quality of life. Our luxury suites feature hotel-quality beds and flat panel TVs so that you feel most comfortable during your stay. Call us today to arrange a sleep study at our secure facility in Monterey.
Call 831-920-1411. That's 831-920-1411.
The Ozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Ozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Ozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Ben Mankiewicz, who's the primetime host of Turner Classic Movies. Ben, we just have a few more minutes. I was also very excited to see that There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
Showing.
Did you get a chance to see Phantom Thread yet?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Can't
and obviously
wait.
You watch Phantom Thread and Paul Thomas Anderson's movie, and apparently Daniel Day-Lewis's final
That's what he
acting
says.
performance. I don't mean to sound cynical. I'm dubious just because why would anyone retire from anything at the top of their game? And I think about, I'm a big sports fan. You think about Michael Jordan, and to me, the great thing about Michael Jordan was he came back and he's no longer the best player. He came back and he was the 16th best player. And if you could be the 16th best player, I would keep playing.
Yeah.
So I hope that it's not the final performance of Daniel Day-Lewis, but his brilliance certainly comes through in that film, and I'm thrilled that we're showing There Will Be Blood. Excuse me.
Very powerful film, and it's exciting that you've got a really great lineup. And Braveheart, with Mel Gibson, which is, as I said,
and Braveheart on a night, again, if it's the final night for Best Picture winners, and in primetime, running through until 2:45 in the morning because these move. But we have epics. We have Gandhi, Braveheart, and Ben-Hur. And those. You see what the programming department did, and you're like, yeah, those go together. The first night of Best Picture winners in prime time, you had Bridge on the River Kwai, Patton, From Here to Eternity, and Casablanca, all sort of World War II connected. Mm-hmm. They really do a great job of finding movies that work together.
I do like your program. Whoever does, you said it's your
Charlie
friend,
Tavish,
Tavish, who does the programming, and they do a wonderful job. Another thing that I love about Turner is your promos for what's coming up during the month. They're brilliant.
One of the problems that I found when I started working there, and I had these ideas for other things I wanted to do, was that everything cost so much money because we won't put anything on the air that isn't incredibly sort of carefully crafted. So you're correct. Everything we do looks great. Right?
Yes.
And so we're very careful about what actually goes on the air.
Well, and it shows. And the in memoriams that you do, throughout the year, when we have so many people that we keep losing. I always shed a tear when I'm watching them. They're so beautifully done. So
thanks. I will let those people know. I tweeted how good they were, the guys who did that this year. And, we have a great relationship with the Academy, and it's a relationship that we do 31 Days of Oscar. They let us literally use the word Oscar, and they encourage us to do it, and they're supportive of it, and we have a long-term deal. I do think our in memoriam is better than the Academy. I really think the people who put that together for us really just do an astounding job.
They do an astounding job. I totally agree with you. Well, this year the Oscars falls on my birthday, and I consider the Oscars my Super Bowl Sunday, so I'm really excited this year.
I consider Super Bowl Sunday my Super Bowl Sunday, but I also love the Oscars. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you, Ben, for being on the show. It's been wonderful having you here. I look forward to having you back. Maybe we can talk about Summer Under the Stars.
No, I would love to. I'll come on anytime, Jan. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Ben. You've been listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like the Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.